Dear learners of Standard 8, welcome back to my Science Geography class. Hopefully, you all are safe and sound at home by the blessings of Almighty Allah. In our previous lessons, we learnt about the satellites, and there also I had discussed with you about the natural satellites and artificial satellites. Today, I will discuss about artificial satellites and the history of their development. So, about satellite, you know, the smaller body orbiting a larger one, usually a planet, is called the satellite. And there are two types of satellites, natural satellite and artificial satellite. And the moon is the natural satellite of our earth, and the artificial satellite also, the definition we will know now. What is this? This is the artificial satellite, which is man-made, that is, it is the space vehicle designed to orbit a large body, usually the earth. So it is designed by man, and man sent it to collect the information. So what is the artificial satellite? A satellite is an object in space that orbits or circles around a bigger object. There are two kinds of satellites, natural, that is such as we can use the example moon is a natural satellite of the earth, or artificial satellite, that is such as the international space station orbiting the earth. So like the moon, it's the artificial satellite. This satellites also orbiting the earth, and which is space vehicles designed by man. So the satellites, these artificial satellites have four main parts, that is a power system, which could be solar or nuclear, or for example it is the power source, and a way to control its attitude. This is the controller panel. It's like a torch light, the black tube light. So it's the attitude control, and an antenna to transmit and receive information, and a payload to collect the information. Here, to collect the information, it has the payload. Now, which planets have artificial satellite? Many planets and worlds in our solar system have human-made moons as well, particularly around Mars, where several probes orbit the planet doing observations of its surface and environment. The planets Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter and Saturn all had artificial satellites observing them at some point in history. So measure the planets, that is Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter and Saturn. These planets have the artificial satellites, and man sent these artificial satellites to collect different types of informations about these types of planets. Now we will know about the history of artificial satellite. The history of artificial satellite is not very old. The first journey into the outer space was initiated by the Soviet Union on 4th October 1957, and when they sent the artificial satellite, its name is Sputnik 1. So the first artificial satellite was successfully launched by the Soviet Union on October 4th 1957. This satellite was called Sputnik 1, and this Sputnik 1 weighed 183 pounds, was about the size of a cricket ball, and took 98 minutes to orbit the Earth. This is the image of the Sputnik 1. So the meaning of the word Sputnik is traveling mate. Now you will know some information about Soviet Union. In the world map, the position of Soviet Union here follow in Eurasia. So the Soviet Union, usually officially the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, USSR. The short form is written in your book also, so you should know the name. This is the Soviet Union. Officially the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics was a federal socialist state in northern Eurasia that existed from 1922 to 1991. So the United States called their space travelers, astronauts, what? Star sailor. It comes from the Greek word. Then next, in the same year, Soviet Union sent Sputnik 2 on 2nd December. So they next launched the Sputnik 2 on 2nd December, and this Sputnik 2 carried a much heavier payload, and this included a dog called Laika. Next one, the first American artificial satellite. This is Explorer 1, which was launched on 2nd February 1958. This Explorer 1 was the first satellite launched by the United States on 2nd February 1958 and was part of the US. Participation in the International Geophysical Year. The mission followed the first two satellites the previous year. This mission followed the first two the mission followed by first two satellites. That is these two satellites which were sent by Soviet Union, Sputnik 1 and Sputnik 2. Then the Soviet Union's Sputnik 1 and Sputnik 2 beginning the Cold War space race between the two nations. Next, Vostok 1. This is first manned space mission which also sent by Soviet Union, and this Vostok 1 carried the first person in space named Yuri Gagarin on 12th April 1961. So on 12 April 1961, the Soviet Union won the race with the United States to get a human into space. So Vostok 1 was the first manned space mission. When Yuri Gagarin was launched into orbit around the Earth on Vostok 1, they dubbed Gagarin the first cosmonaut. Cosmonaut. What is cosmonaut? That is an astronaut of the Soviet or Russian space program. Roughly translated from Russian and Greek as sailor of the universe, or I told you previously, the star of sailor. Although he had the ability to take over manual control of his spacecraft in an emergency, it was flown in an automatic mode as a precaution. Medical science at that time did not know what happened or what would happen to a human in the weightlessness of space. Vostok 1 orbited the Earth for 108 minutes and made its entry over the Soviet Union, with Gagarin ejecting from the spacecraft at 7,000 meters and landing by parachute. Next, follow the Vostok 6. This Vostok 6 was the first woman space mission which is also sent by Soviet Union. So Vostok 6 was the first human space flight to carry a woman cosmonaut Valentina V. Tereshkova into the space. So this is the image of Vostok 6 and this is the image of Valentina V. Tereshkova. So Valentina V. Tereshkova was USSR is the first woman who went to space on 16 June 1963 in Vostok 6. Some information about Valentina V. Tereshkova. Valentina Vladimirovna Tereshkova is a member of the Russian State Duma, engineer and former cosmonaut. She is the first and youngest woman to have flown in space with a solo mission on the Vostok 6 on 16 June 1963. She orbited the Earth 48 times, spent almost 3 days in space, and remains the only woman to have been on a solo space mission. Now you will know about the Intelsat 1. Intelsat 1 was launched as communication satellite for commercial use. This Intelsat 1, this is known as the early bird catches the worm. This was the first commercial communication satellite to be placed in geosynchronous orbit on 6 April 1965. Then next one, the Landsat 1, formerly named this ERTS-A and ERTS-1 was the first satellite of the United States, this Landsat program, and was launched on July 23, 1972. Earth-oriented platform for orbiting information on agriculture and forestry resources, geology and mineral resources, hydrology and also water. That means Earth observation satellite. Then next one is the Apollo-Soyuz, was the first crewed international space mission carried out jointly by the United States and the Soviet Union in July 1975 for international communication. Millions of people around the world watches on television as a United States Apollo model docked with a Soviet Union Soyuz capsule. It looks like a capsule. The project and its memorable handshake in space was a symbol of detente between the two superpowers. It is generally considered to mark the end of the space race, which had begun in 1957 with the launch of Sputnik 1. The mission was officially known as the Apollo-Soyuz Test Project. So Apollo-Soyuz Test Project was sent first on a mission in the year 1975 for international communication. So dear learners, over 5,000 satellites have been launched to transmit telephone, radio and television signals around the world. But fewer than half are still orbiting and many have stopped working and are orbiting as space junk. So the history of the artificial satellite you should know, and here given the important information, so you must have to memorize these informations. So thank you all. Stay safe and blessed at your home.